엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
Coming up on Arirang News. With the ongoing walkout, the South Korean government is injecting some $140 million per month to fill the shortage of doctors at hospitals. Also, the role of nurses will be expanded to include some of the duties normally done by doctors. President Yoon says, soon with the new rail line, the GTX-B, commuters will be able to reach the city of Incheon, where the nation's main international airport is located, from Seoul, while listening to just a couple of songs. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un orders strengthened war preparation while inspecting his troops at a time when South Korea and the U.S. carry out joint military drills. Seoul's defense minister warns that the South will immediately punish the regime should it engage in any provocation. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We start with the medical disruption that followed South Korea's proposed increase in the number of medical students. With the ongoing walkout, the government is allocating some $140 million per month to fill the shortage of doctors at hospitals. Also, from tomorrow, the role of nurses will be expanded to include some of the duties normally done by doctors. Shin-young leads us off.
The government announced additional measures on Thursday to tackle the ongoing shortage of hospital physicians as thousands of junior doctors have continued to refuse to return to work. As part of these, 188 billion Korean won, or around $141 million will be allocated monthly in extra spending on healthcare using money from the state health insurance fund.
The government will establish funding to support enhanced coverage of the hospitalization of severely ill patients and provide extra compensation to doctors who care for patients in intensive care units.
This follows the announcement the previous day of $96 million in contingency funding to ensure that emergency care and essential services remain in operation. To further address the disruptions of medical services, the Health Ministry released guidelines on Thursday that will expand the role of nurses. Starting Friday, they will be allowed to perform certain emergency procedures that they have been trained for without the supervision of doctors who would normally order them. Regarding this, the Korean Medical Association voiced opposition to the measure, expressing concerns that it could result in legal malpractice suits from patients who had undergone illegal medical practices at medical sites. During a meeting of the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure headquarters on the same day, the Interior Ministry said it would push for the enactment of a law to ease the burden on doctors and other medical staff facing such medical lawsuits from patients. Meanwhile, according to the Health Ministry, as of 11 a.m. on Wednesday, more than 90% of resident doctors from 100 major hospitals, over 11,000, were still absent from their posts nationwide. Shin-young, Arirang News.
Shifting gears, President Yoon says soon with the new rail line, the GTX-B, commuters will be able to reach the city of Incheon, where the nation's main international airport is located, from Seoul, while listening to just a couple of songs. His remarks come while he visited the city today to meet citizens. Our Kim Do-yeon has the details.
President Yoon Suk-yeol has pledged efforts to enhance Incheon City's connectivity with a new rail line, the GTX-B, in 2030 to reduce commute time to and from the capital to just 30 minutes. The president was speaking while in Incheon for a policy discussion with citizens on Thursday on how to develop the seaport and airport city further.
예전에 서울과 인천을 통학하는 학생과 직장인들이 오랜 시간 지하철을 타면서 영어 단어도 외우고 공부도 했는데 이제 그런 공부할 수 있는 시대는 지나갈 것입니다. 노래 한두 곡 들으시면 바로 서울입니다.
He added the city will become better connected, making cities such as Busan in the southeast and Mokpo in the southwest reachable by train in around 2 hours. He also shared his vision of creating landmark attractions in Incheon to utilize its advantage as a gateway to and from Korea. Specifically, he spoke on fully automating Incheon Port's Piers 1 and 2 to create an internationally competitive logistics port. The surrounding land, around 3 square kilometers, will host resorts, shopping malls, and cultural spaces to attract tourists, a project named Incheon Golden Harbor. And President Yoon added that it's important to preserve the characteristics of each region when developing them.
구도심의 그 개발과 복원이라고 하는 것은 단순히 구도심이 너무 낙후되고 노후화됐기 때문에 발전시키자라는 그런 하드웨어적인 측면뿐만이 아니라 그 도시의 역사와 정체성을 살려주는 것이고.
Also, according to the president, Incheon International Airport will become the 3rd global mega hub airport in the world capable of handling 100 million international passengers when its current expansion finishes in October. He also assures citizens that the merger between South Korea's 2 main airlines, Korean Air and Asiana, will not negatively affect consumers, especially in terms of the mileage system. After the event, to re-emphasize the GTX-B line's significance, Yoon joined the groundbreaking ceremony in Songdo.
GTX가 인천의 교통지도는 물론 산업지도, 생활지도, 문화지도까지 혁명적으로 바꿀 것입니다. 저와 우리 정부는 GTX-B 건설 과정을 차근차근 꼼꼼하게 살피겠습니다.
President Yoon has in fact been emphasizing the role of intercity connections to increase convenience and productivity across the country. 김도현, Arirang News.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un orders strengthened war preparation while inspecting his troops at a time when South Korea and the U.S. carry out joint military drills. Seoul's defense minister warns that the South will immediately punish the regime should it engage in any provocation. Choi Min-jung reports.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is seen taking a shooting position with a rifle. On Wednesday, he visited a key military base and called for strengthened preparations for war. The regime's Korean Central News Agency on Thursday reported that Kim ordered for practical, actual war training to be intensified. Kim underlined that this would allow the regime to suppress enemies with overwhelming force and contain the slightest attempt to start a war. The visit comes 2 days after South Korea and the U.S. launched their Freedom Shield military exercise to strengthen deterrence against North Korea. An expert says Kim's remarks comes in an apparent move to counter the allies' drill.
It appears that Kim's remarks were in a way intended to counter the Seoul-Washington military exercise. Internally, Kim encouraged the military and the soldiers pledged their loyalty to their leader.
During an inspection of the Freedom Shield exercise on Thursday, Seoul's defense minister Shin Won-sik dismissed Kim's remarks and ordered the military to prepare to destroy the regime in the shortest possible time if it attempts to invade the South. The minister also warned that South Korea would immediately punish the North if it used the drills as an excuse to provoke. North Korea has often fired missiles in a show of protest against Seoul and Washington's military exercises. Meanwhile, Seoul's defense ministry on Thursday called Kim's remarks illogical.
It's North Korea that's directly violating UN Security Council resolutions and escalating nuclear and missile threats on the Korean Peninsula while attempting to wage war. We believe the North is the one who's done the wrong and being absurd.
The ministry once again reiterated that the combined exercise annually conducted by South Korea and the U.S. is defensive in nature. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
The Foreign Ministry will replace the bureau that deals with the North Korea nuclear issue after years of deadlock in nuclear negotiations with the North. This is a major change after the bureau was first established almost 20 years ago. Bae Eun-ji explains.
For the first time in 18 years, the Foreign Ministry has decided to replace the bureau that handles North Korean nuclear issues and create a new department that will oversee not only issues on the Korean Peninsula, but also diplomatic strategy and information, international security, and cyber affairs. Tentatively named the Office of Strategy and Intelligence, it will replace the current Office of Korean Peninsula Peace and Security Affairs. The Foreign Ministry explains that this is to respond flexibly in accordance with geopolitical changes.
This takes into account the evolving reality that issues on the Korean Peninsula are no longer confined to the North's nuclear and missile threats, but have evolved into issues such as cybersecurity and financial sanctions that directly and indirectly impact the North Korean nuclear issue.
This year, the Foreign Ministry also plans to focus on economic security by reducing supply chain risks to prevent situations like the recent shortage of urea. It said it will comprehensively analyze and prepare for changes in the industrial policies of major countries and the possibility of new legislation, such as discussions with the U.S. on the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS Act, which have sparked concerns from South Korean car makers. It also plans to provide diplomatic support to win large contracts in other countries, in fields such as defense, infrastructure, and nuclear power plants. President Yoon was briefed on these plans on Thursday and ordered the Foreign Ministry to implement strategies that focus on nations where government cooperation is important for Korean companies to expand and gain contracts overseas. Also on Thursday, the Overseas Koreans Agency, which was first established in June last year, also announced its plans for this year. It will focus on informing overseas Koreans about Korea's political and economic development. It also seeks to expand support for the operation of Korean language schools and strengthen the capabilities of teachers through training. The agency also aims to help improve the livelihoods of overseas Koreans by holding meetings to address the difficulties they face through various occasions such as overseas visit from the president. 배은지, Arirang News.
Moving on, South Korea's biggest battery and electric vehicle exhibitions kicked off on Wednesday, attracting hundreds of global companies to showcase their newest products. Our Moon Hye-ryun has the details on how firms and the government are keeping the industry booming despite setbacks with lower EV sales.
As countries around the world seek ways to reduce their carbon footprint, electric vehicle batteries have emerged as an up-and-coming industry. To help domestic firms maintain traction in this market, the South Korean government pledged to foster research and development for batteries this year.
We will invest more than 500 billion Korean won in R&D over the next 5 years for the development of next-generation batteries, low-end batteries, and eco-friendly technologies.
Last year, the country's battery exports amounted to just under $10 billion. And as a market leader, South Korea showcases the newest battery trends every year.
This year's Interbattery and EV Trend Korea exhibitions are hosting the largest number of companies to date as the market continues to grow.
Nearly 600 firms from both home and abroad were in attendance, including the commonly dubbed K-Trio, LG Energy Solution, Samsung SDI, and SK On. According to SNE Research, their combined market share came to just over 20% in January this year, with all three recording year-on-year growth. But with Chinese battery firms beginning to take bigger portions of the pie, South Korean companies are upping their game. LG Energy Solution showcased mid-nickel NCM batteries that have a reduced proportion of nickel.
Nickel is a rare resource, so reducing the amount of nickel that's used helps to lower costs.
Other than lowering costs to match their cheaper counterparts, firms are also diversifying their portfolios. Samsung SDI plans to start mass production of their all-solid battery, which boasts a longer lifespan and endurance in 2027, leading to safer EVs with longer running times. SK On has jumped into the lithium iron phosphate battery market, with LFP batteries having a high power density that makes them ideal for EVs.
LFP batteries don't typically perform as well in low temperatures, but our new Winter Pro LFP battery has improved on those weaknesses.
Despite lagging global EV sales, companies are finding ways to keep the momentum going. With commercialization of these advanced technologies yet to hit the market, there's still much room for growth. 문혜련, Arirang News.
South Korea's former First Lady Son Myung-soon, the wife of the country's 14th president Kim Il-sung, has passed away at the age of 95. According to medical industry sources, she died late Thursday afternoon from a chronic illness at the Seoul National University Hospital. President Yoon Suk-yeol expressed his condolences in a statement released via a spokesperson and said that she'll be remembered for her warmth and her efforts in quietly supporting her husband's career in public service. Former President Kim Il-sung was in office from 1993 to 1998. In the U.S., prospects of interest rate cuts remain in place, but their timing remains unclear. Now, this is based on the latest remarks by the head of Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell. Our Shin Se-byuk covers his outlook.
U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell has indicated potential interest rate cuts in 2024. Testifying before Congress on Wednesday, Powell reaffirmed plans to cut interest rates within the year, though he did not pin down an exact timeline.
If the economy evolves broadly as expected, it will likely be appropriate to begin dialing back policy restraint at some point this year.
Despite this, Powell adopted a cautious approach regarding rate reductions, emphasizing that the 2% inflation target has not yet been met.
But the economic outlook is uncertain, and ongoing progress toward our 2% objective for inflation is not assured.
The Fed chair also noted that the U.S. economy is showing no sign of an imminent recession, saying that restoring price stability and achieving maximum employment must come before lowering interest rates. Powell's remarks at the December 2023 FOMC meeting, which were made public in January, suggested an end to the aggressive rate hike policy the U.S. has been following. At that time, FOMC officials anticipated 3 rate cuts, each by a 0.25 percentage point by the end of 2024, while the actual policy path would depend on how the economy evolves. Following Powell's testimony, U.S. stocks closed higher on Wednesday, breaking a 2-day losing streak on Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average saw a 0.2% rise. The broader S&P 500 index advanced by 0.5%, and the Nasdaq Composite climbed by 0.6%. Meanwhile, concerns over a U.S. banking crisis triggered by commercial real estate issues were addressed by Powell as well. This was in the context of shares in holding bank New York Community Bancorp dropping nearly 40% on Wednesday, following news that the bank had downgraded to below investment grade due to bad commercial real estate loans and was attempting to secure new funding. Powell acknowledged this as a significant challenge, but reassured that it was manageable and unlikely to impact the wider economy significantly. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
Starting Thursday, the Digital Markets Act will be fully implemented in the European Union to regulate large tech companies. A total of 6 tech giants, including Apple and Facebook's parent company Meta, will now need to comply with this law. Our Park Gun-woo has this report.
The Digital Markets Act, regulating tech giants from abusing their market-dominating power, starts its full application in all 27 European Union nations from Thursday local time. On the first day, the European Commission will be receiving reports from the 6 regulated companies designated as gatekeepers on what measures they have taken to comply with the law. Those 6 gatekeepers are Amazon, Apple, Google parent Alphabet, Meta, Microsoft, and TikTok owner ByteDance. Based on the reports, companies will be evaluated on whether they are following the law, and if they are considered to be obeying it insufficiently, an investigation will be launched immediately. Under the law, which aims to make the digital market fairer and more contestable, the EU has set obligations on 22 services the gatekeepers operate, which include operating systems, social media, search engines, app stores, and online advertisements. One of the biggest changes under the law is the requirement for gatekeepers to allow third parties to interoperate with their own services. For example, iPhone users in the EU will be able to download applications from outside Apple's App Store. The DMA also bans companies from giving preferences to their own services. In this case, the Google Flights button that appears at the top of search results will now be removed when users search for plane tickets on Google. Companies violating obligations could face hefty fines, up to a maximum of 20% of their overall annual turnover earned globally for repeated infringements. Pundits forecast that the EU's Digital Markets Act could possibly become the standard for regulating big tech companies in other countries in the near future. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
In other news, at least 3 crew members of a cargo ship passing through the Gulf of Aden have been killed by Houthi rebels, marking the first civilian death since the group began attacking ships in the Red Sea over the war in Gaza. Jong-un has the latest.
According to U.S. Central Command on Wednesday, a Houthi missile attack has killed at least 3 crew members on a Red Sea merchant ship. This marks the first fatalities reported since the Iran-aligned Yemeni group began strikes against shipping in one of the world's busiest trade lanes in support of the Palestinians. CENTCOM said the Houthi strike also injured at least 4 crew members and caused significant damage to the ship. The Houthis claimed responsibility for the attack, which U.S. officials say was their 5th in the past 2 days. A Houthi spokesman said the targeting operation came as the ship's crew rejected warning messages from Yemeni naval forces. The attack set the Greek-owned Barbados flagship True Confidence ablaze around 50 nautical miles, or approximately 93 kilometers off the coast of Yemen's port of Aden. The Greek operators said no information was available about the status of the 20 crew and 3 armed guards who were forced to abandon ship, including 15 Filipinos, 4 Vietnamese, 2 Sri Lankans, an Indian, and a Nepali national. However, the Philippine Department of Migrant Workers on Thursday announced the death of 2 of its nationals and said 2 other Filipino crewmen were severely injured in the attack. Houthi rebels have been attacking commercial ships passing through the Red Sea since November last year, in what they say is retaliation for Israel's war in Gaza. The Houthi attacks have disrupted global shipping, forcing shipping companies to take longer and more expensive routes around southern Africa. While the militia has said it would attack vessels with links to the United Kingdom, the United States, and Israel, shipping industry sources say all ships could be at risk. Despite international condemnation and a call to end hostilities in the Red Sea, the Houthis said they won't stop until the aggression is stopped and the siege on the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip is lifted. Jong-un, Arirang News.
Rain or snow continued around the central part of the country today, along with cold winds. As the last cold snap approaches, the temperatures will drop to below 0 tomorrow. Please make sure you dress up warm on your way to work tomorrow morning. With a heavy snow advisory in place, up to 5 centimeters of more snow will fall by tonight in the mountainous areas of Gangwon-do province. In other inland areas, there's expected to be 1 to 5 millimeters of rain and 1 to 3 centimeters of snow. This rain and snow will mostly die down tonight, and clear skies will be back again tomorrow. However, as the temperatures drop quickly overnight, more spring frost will come around tomorrow morning. Tomorrow, Seoul, Daejeon, and Gyeongju will start off at -1, Daegu and Gwangju 0 degrees. It will be windy all over the country in the middle of the day tomorrow. Daily highs will move up to 6 in Seoul, Daegu and Gyeongju 10 degrees. The cold snap will gradually ease from Sunday afternoon. After that, clear and mild weather is expected for next week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that is all for this newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 10 p.m. with the AI headline news. Good night.
한국에 오면 먹어야죠.